Great news! There's a quick way you can save money. Switch to Geico. Geico could help you get great coverage at a great price, and it only takes 15 minutes to see if you could save 15% or more on car insurance. Go to geico.com today and see how much you could save.
And now, the Lowe Post.
Welcome to the Lowe Post podcast. It's Friday. Nobody sleeps. This is an unplanned podcast, but game one of the NBA Finals was so crazy that I had to talk about it. It just has to be talked about. And Brian Windhorst, are you in San Francisco or Oakland?
I'm in Oakland right now, but I slept in San Francisco. I might as well have just stayed in Oakland because I went back and forth across the Bay Bridge twice in like 6 hours.
Oof. That can kill. That's a killer, that Bay Bridge. You get that at the wrong time, you're in trouble.
Well, it was dark both times I went across it, so it was no big deal.
The NBA Finals, it's fantastic. So this is going to be a quick podcast because we're both very busy. You've been around LeBron forever. You've been to a lot of these games. Where does last night rank for you? And just given all the craziness that happened with the officiating, the scuffle, the suspension rumors, JR with the all-time worst blunder in maybe in NBA history, like, I don't know, what was the scene like? What was what encounters or conversations or scenes were memorable to you just hanging around? It must have been a remarkable night.
The Cavs were devastated after the game. I've seen seasons end where there was less devastation than they were after the game. Yeah, it's just so weird. There's so many memories. I mean, that's the locker room where they celebrated their championship. You know? It's the same physical space where I was in there where they were pouring champagne over each other, and this was the exact inverse of it, which just shows the incredible journey that they've had in this building over the last 4 years. They were devastated by that loss, and really devastated about the call reversal. Of course, they were upset with JR, but much more focused and devastated about the call reversal. And even when I sort of brought up to some people about this potential Kevin Love situation, and I was like, you guys are better going to have to prepare a case on this. They couldn't stop focusing on the reverse call. It was all they could focus on last night. So, in my mind, Zach, there were three things that happened in the last 30 seconds. You had the block charge thing, you had the George Hill missed free throw, and you had the JR, not knowing time and score. Or at least not knowing score. He probably knew the time. And any one of those three go the other direction, the Cavs have a good chance to win. They needed one of those three to go their direction. They got none of the three. And to beat the Warriors, you just can't have that on the road. You just can't have it.
I'm fascinated by moments where an individual player just costs a team a game through just something outrageous. And I don't mean, I was just texting with someone who's involved with the series who told me, wow, George Hill is really off the hook because of JR.
Oh, you got that right.
But you know what? People miss free throws. It's like he's going to miss 2 out of every 10 free throws. Kawhi Leonard missed a free throw in the finals that ended up costing the Spurs a game or indirectly. It happens. What JR did does not happen. What Draymond Green did 2 years ago, punching LeBron and upping his flagrant count to the point where he was suspended. Those are the kind of things I'm talking about. And I wrote a story last year where I just asked a bunch of people on the Warriors, like, how did you get over that? Like, if you play for the Warriors, you have such self-belief that a large part of you must believe Draymond Green cost us the championship because he couldn't control himself. And I was fascinated with how do you ever bring him back into the – I mean, not bring him back into the fold because he's on the team. He's a great player. You need him. But how do you get by that? And we're early in this process, but, like, without naming who you talk to or anything like that, like, what are they feeling towards JR? What sense did you get? Like, how do you – I don't know. Is there some element of, well, it's just JR, you live with it?
So, I mean, there's two parts of the conversation. The Cavs have been extremely disappointed with JR all season. They feel like some of the good habits that he developed a couple years ago when they gave him that contract have gone away. And he's been all over the place all year. He's had some miserable moments all season. And he's had some games in the playoffs where he's just been absolutely a ghost. And So there has been frustration within the team at JR for a long time now. And so you have that exists, and it's just like, this is JR not being focused on basketball, and this is a manifestation of everything that's happened with JR all season long. Whether it's going talking to Jason Terry or whatever, whether it's other decisions that he makes or whether other games. And then you have the actual moment, the actual moment. And the other thing I thought was interesting was JR's decision that he made to not own it and to, float that he thought the game was tied or that he knew the score. That's not a great decision by him because clearly by his reaction, he thought the Cavs were ahead. And then if you watch the video, you could see him say, I can't prove that he said it, but it certainly looks to me like he said, I thought we were up. In fact, when LeBron screams at him and the buzzer sounds, he initially looks at LeBron and doesn't know why LeBron's upset. And then he looks at the score and he looks back at LeBron and says, I thought we were up. So it's if he would have asked me for my advice, not that he ever would, I would have advised him just to own it because it makes him look bad. He didn't know that Ty Lue had gone out and said on the podium 5 minutes earlier that he didn't know. But we didn't really need Ty Lue to say that. We knew. And so, like I said, it's a two-pronged thing. It's not just disappointment at that moment. It's also disappointment at JR all year. And by the way, if he takes that shot and he immediately goes back up, Durant could have blocked it or he could have missed it. He didn't directly cost the Cavs the game because we'll never know what would have happened. But because it's an all-time blunder, history will probably remember him costing the Cavs the game.
Well, you have to shoot it. I'm going to watch it right now again just to make sure. Because he maybe has a floater. He maybe has a one-dribble floater. I'm watching it right now. George Hill's about to miss a free throw. JR gets the rebound. He's got a floater. He may get fouled. Someone may get an offensive rebound. Like, you can't do nothing. And
right.
It's astonishing. And I'm so tired. I was going to bring up something else and I forgot. Oh, JR. So the reading lips, I guess we can't ever prove it. Did he say ahead or up? What was I thought we were ahead or I thought we were up? What was the lip reading consensus?
I thought it was up.
Maybe he'll just claim maybe he said I taught in Europe or something like that. Like there's no definitive proof. I'm glad you brought up Love. If the NBA suspends Love, it will be one of the all-time stupidest rulings from the league office. And I understand that they have a black and white rule on this. You can't be on the court during an altercation or you can't leave the bench area during an altercation. We've obviously seen this dating to the Robert Horry, Steve Nash hip check and many others, CJ McCollum this season, where they just, you can be strolling around doing nothing and they just say, you know what, it's too important. We cannot ever have a brawl or a malice in the palace again. It just has to be a bright line. And it just doesn't have to be a bright line. You can have leeway in these situations for someone who's A, already on the court anyway, and B, doing nothing. It's just like the idea that there's no, we have a system that allows you to review a block charge call and then in the process of doing the restricted area review everything, review the gray area of everything, a gray area of a tough, unclear block charge call, a call so unclear that Steve Javie on TV initially said, I thought he was in a legal guarding position, and that the charge call was good. But we don't have the mental flexibility to give Kevin Love leeway for strolling on the court. And by the way, if we're going to start penalizing people for being on the court when they should not be, or being outside the areas where they're supposed to be, then every coach, including several Cleveland Cavaliers assistants, every game are going to be penalized. Eric Spoelstra can't go 2 minutes without being 5 feet onto the court. If they suspend Kevin Love, it's just going to be stupid. It's going to be stupid, and it's going to force them to revisit this rule and come up with a very not complicated judgment system where people actually use their brains to determine what's fair. Do you think he's actually going to get suspended?
By the letter of the law, he probably should be suspended.
It's just unbelievable. It's so dumb. I understand. I'm sympathetic to the league. I'm sympathetic. It's a bright line rule. The worst case scenario is very bad for them. I'm sympathetic. It just doesn't seem that hard to differentiate.
In David Stern's NBA, he would probably be suspended. In Adam Silver's NBA, I tend to agree with you that they will probably not suspend him. Here's the thing that's going to make this more interesting. Do you believe that Tristan Thompson's flagrant 2 will stand? Because I don't believe that it will.
First of all, the flagrant 2 was a ridiculous call. It was just
that's what I'm saying.
It's a bad call.
The reason that the situation was created
was all that. It's all from that stupid
right.
call. And not only that, Tristan Thompson shoves the ball in Draymond Green's face, and you could argue that's his hand contacts Draymond Green's face after the ball. There are going to be people are calling for him to be suspended over that.
So I believe the correct call there should be to downgrade that. If they don't want to downgrade it out of a flagrant, okay, fine. They should downgrade it out of a flagrant 2, just in case Tristan Thompson has another flagrant 2 or something in this playoffs or in this series. And they should probably add a technical foul for what he did to Draymond. That to me is the proper call. But the overreaction to that play created the issue that Kevin Love ended up being on. Kevin was protesting the flagrant call, which, again, you're not supposed to come on the court, but that's what he was doing. He wasn't on the court because of the scuffle. And then when the scuffle happened, he was already on the court. And as soon as that happened, Jim Boylan, one of the Cavs assistants, lassoed him around the waist and threw him back to the bench. I think what would be so amazing, because Zach, as soon as I saw them go to the replay, I knew that they were going to probably change that block charge. And
did you really?
I knew people were going to freak. Yeah, I knew there people were going to.
Where were you sitting? Who were you sitting next to? Did you tell that? Did you say that to someone? Like, what was there buzz about that right away? Were people confused? I don't sit in the arena during the finals games in Golden State. I sit in our trucks. We have a whole trailer farm, and I was actually sitting next to Kevin Wildes. Who's what
like
up, Wildes?
He's the boss of Countdown and the boss of The Jump and a bunch of other shows.
Also one of the sharpest dressed men. Every time I see Kevin Wildes, I feel so ashamed of myself.
He was enamored with LeBron's shorts in suit last night.
Oh. And
he was enamored with it. Yeah, loved it.
His opinion, boy, that's a powerful pro opinion.
Yeah, and also
anyway.
just was raving about the designer of the suits that the Cavs have been wearing. Just thinks that guy's the greatest guy in the world. Just couldn't have been more complimentary. But that's another topic. But I saw it coming. I talked to somebody at the league last night, and he didn't have the data directly in front of him, but he guesstimated that in the 5 years that this rule has been in place, in the 2012-13 season, they opened up the possibility that you could reverse a block charge call. You can't. There's a whole bunch of other calls you can't reverse, but you could reverse a block charge call because Zach, obviously, when you go to the replay, you're usually looking at black-white issues. Was his foot on the line for the 3? Was he stepping out of bounds? Stuff like that. Was he in the restricted area? This is the one area, I believe, where they can change a subjective call. And anyway, this guy at the league told me he estimated there was around 10 times that it had happened in 5 years where their actually call was changed. He remembered a call in Brooklyn. Like he said, 3 years ago there was a call in Brooklyn where there was a big reversal that was maybe the most controversial up until last night. So we're talking about they did follow the rules. And I think ultimately they got the call correct because I do think it was a block. I think that by the letter of the law they got it correct. And I knew I was afraid it was going to happen because I knew people were going to freak out because it's not a very well known rule because it never happens. The Cavs were furious about the spirit of the law, that they didn't think that it should have been reviewed because it wasn't that close. And it's kind of like getting something found, getting something illicit found on you by the police. but then you filing a motion to dismiss because it was an illegal search. The Cavs were sort of thinking it was an illegal search, even though they may realize that it was a blocking foul.
I guess it was a blocking foul. It was a blocking foul. By the letter of the law, it was a blocking foul. Caron Butler was on Get Up this morning with me, and he was in the green room saying, how about a no call? How about we just let the stars make plays? And I thought that was kind of interesting, and then I watched it again. I was like, that's a pretty heavy collision to just call a no call. And I think if it's anything, it has to be a block. And I've always been on the side of there are too many charges called anyway. The offensive player should get the benefit of the doubt. So I don't mind the call, but if you're the Cavs, you have to be furious with the process. It's just it sucks. It was clear.
They were devastated. Devastated.
Love scoring amazing hotel deals? Then you've got to get the Hotel Tonight app. Forget scrolling through never-ending lists of hotels. Hotel Tonight shows you a select list of incredible deals at hotels you actually want to stay at. And even though the name's Hotel Tonight, you can book up to 100 days in advance in top destinations and up to a week in advance everywhere else. Want to get those deals? Yeah, you do. Download the Hotel Tonight app now.
Have you ever seen LeBron play better? That might be of all these games, and I think he's up to 8 or 9 40-point games, and obviously now a 50-point game. I don't know that he played a finer game than last night. Maybe he did. I don't know. They're all blending together. 51, 8 and 8, 5 turnovers you don't love, 19 of 32, 10 of 11 from the line, and just a step ahead of the smartest defense in the league, no matter how they played him. I just thought he was, when he walked into those threes, when they came back and took the lead, it was just, you just don't know what to do with the guy.
It was almost a perfect game. It's probably the closest thing he can achieve to a perfect game because he mixed the outside shooting with the power. He was 9 of 12 on drives. So, this is one of the criticisms that he gets is why won't he go to the hole? He used his power game, and he used a combination of the power game and the finesse game. It was just a perfect offensive performance. He wasn't great defensively, but it was just a perfect offensive performance. At the one point, I believe, when he got hot on those threes in the third quarter, I believe he had 31 points on 13 shots.
He was 11 of 13 and he had 31 points. Yeah, at that point.
That's in a finals game on the road. It's kind of the highest level of basketball you'll ever see, especially considering the whole defense is set to him and everything like that. The thing about this is the Cavs have had 7 of their last 8 games. They've shot the ball poorly from three-point range. They had another, I think they shot 32% last night, another subpar shooting game.
27%, 10 of 37 from 3.
Oh my gosh, it was even worse. So they've only, had one. The game 3 against the Celtics, they were 17 of 34. So obviously that's higher than average. But they haven't even had an average game. But they haven't even had like their 37 or 38%. And last night the stats showed that LeBron created 17 3-point opportunities off passes. The Cavs were 3 of 17 on them. Now, granted, the Warriors played phenomenal defense. The rotations were beautiful so often last night. The Cavs at times executed really good offense through 3 passes, got the guy open, and the Warriors were running the guy off the line because they're just so good defensively. It wasn't 3 of 17 in a vacuum, but there were so many open looks that LeBron generated. Again, they hit 1 of them. They win the game. They hit 3 of them. The entire complexion of the game changes. The one thing that I think the Cavs can hold on to here is at some point you figure that they will begin to hit threes again. 7 of their last 8 games, they have not shot the ball well from 3, and this entire team is constructed to shoot the 3 ball. So if you're a Cavs fan, you're looking for a reason to have hope going forward because you're probably not going to get another LeBron scoring game like that. You're just hoping that you make some threes.
Yeah, no, there's a sense that they lost their chance last night and that an avalanche is coming for them in game 2. And I get that. I get it. Like, it's a heartbreaking loss. There has to be an emotional component to it, although they have 48 hours of off day now, or practice and off day to stew in it. But they shot 10 of 37 from 3. and that's a reason for hope. And where are you?
The cheerleaders from First Take just walked into the room.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I was on the other side. You know this, Lake Chalet. I did First Take, and yeah, they're off shift.
Anyway,
they're very happy.
So the Warriors shot 51% overall, 36% from three, and committed 7 turnovers, at least individually. I don't see the team turnover number here. If the Cavs are looking for hope, it's we were 10 of 37 from three. Love was 1 of 8 on almost all good looks. And the Warriors only turned the ball over 7 times. So, yes, you were in the game, and a couple of crazy calls and blunders cost you the game. But the Warriors played really, really well, and you were in the game. Now, the flip side of that is they won't win offensive rebounds 19-4 again. They only turned the ball over 11 times themselves, which is a very low number against the Warriors' defense that's good at forcing turnovers. And Cleveland's defense is bad at forcing turnovers. They're unathletic. They don't do it. They didn't do it in the regular season. They haven't done it in the playoffs. So rooting for the Warriors to turn the ball over more is essentially just rooting for them to have one of the games where they throw the ball over the floor. You're not going to force them to do it. They're just going to do stupid stuff, and they might do stupid stuff. So I don't feel as hopeless as I thought I would in the dark of night last night, processing the heartbreak of that outcome. Mostly because of the 10 of 37 number and 6 of 20 on wide open threes, according to the tracking data. It's just got to be better, or they can't win.
Yeah. What do you think Iguodala's status is going to be? Because to me, one of the reasons why the Cavs, they don't have to play against the Hamptons 5. So that gives them some certain line. They can hide some guys. Like they were able to put Kevin Love out there yesterday, and they were comfortable putting him in switches. And he kind of held his own. It's much harder against the Hamptons 5 because it makes it much harder for them to rotate because they're not going to be good enough. They're not going to be good enough on their rotations to cover all 5 guys. But the other side of that is how's Klay Thompson's leg going to feel? Because I saw him after the game and after he had sort of cooled down, and he was limping. He was limping pretty good. Maybe he gets warmed up and gets treatment over 2 days and he's fine. But I think, I got to see how Klay is, and I got to see how Iguodala is. If both of those guys are able to play in Game 2, that opens up another vein of margin for error for the Warriors.
I'm gonna guess Iguodala doesn't play. If they were down 1-0, maybe. I'm gonna guess they try to win another one without him. Now they do have the 2 off days. Maybe that changes things. And again, to your point, like I thought the Cavs' process on defense was generally good. When they played the whatever the low rent Hamptons 5 is with Livingston instead of Iguodala, I call that Tacoma lineup personally.
The Oyster Bay 5?
Yeah, I call it Tacoma lineup instead of the Death lineup. He can hide out on Livingston fine. He switched a lot onto Curry, and it went hit or miss. I'm going to hit this in a column a little bit if I have the energy to write it. But I thought their process on defense was good, and actually almost exactly what I wrote in a column previewing the series. Much to my surprise, I was actually right about something. They generally switched everything. They tried not to switch Love onto Curry on Curry pick and rolls, and then sort of gave that up when it didn't work. And you said before, LeBron wasn't great on defense, and to me, it's take it or leave it because they schemed so that he didn't have to be. They schemed so that he just didn't have to chase Durant around. They're going to switch everything. They forced Durant into some of the exact shots that they want to force him into. I thought their game plan was pretty smart. I'm interested to see sort of what lineups they roll with. They need much more from Tristan Thompson than they got in Game 1. But I thought they generally tried to do the right stuff defensively. They don't have a lot of hope to really even contain the Warriors, but I thought their plan was pretty smart.
Yeah, and by the way, I thought Ty Lue's game plans in Game 6 and 7 against the Celtics and then his game plan last night were pretty good. Ty Lue has gotten some criticism at times, but I think Ty Lue has done some good coaching in this postseason. The thing about it is the Warriors played. What would you assign a grade for the Warriors' overall game last night?
B+, A-. I've seen people saying they didn't play well. And I get that Durant took some of those Houston shots that you make you wonder about, are they losing their rhythm? Maybe a B+, but they shot, again, 51%, 36%, 95 at the line, 7 turnovers. Their defense was pretty engaged. Draymond had a couple random double teams of Kevin Love in the post that I didn't think were necessary, particularly with LeBron out of the game.
Draymond took a couple of weird threes, although he did make one finally.
2 of 5 from 3 made one big, huge one. I thought, what grade would you assign? Did people act as if the Warriors played a bad game?
Well, if I assign Game 3 Houston, if I assign that as that's the game they lost by 40, right? Or were they won by 40? Is that Game 3 or Game 4?
That's Game 3.
Okay, Game 3.
I don't. They won Game 3 by a lot. They also won Game 6 by a lot. So they won a lot of games by a lot in that series.
Game 2 in Houston. They won by. What game did they win in Houston by 40 points?
Game 2. Yeah.
All right. Let's set that.
No. Houston won Game 2 by a lot. The Warriors won Game 1.
I'm so lost. Whatever game the Warriors won in Houston by 40 points. All right. That I assign as the A+ Warriors performance. So using that baseline, it was a B performance from the Warriors. So you have to, if you're the Cavs, you have to hope that you continue to get B efforts, because because Curry had a good game last night. If Curry and Durant both have a good game, it's curtains. So, the Cavs took a game where they didn't face an A+ opponent on the road, and they gave, I would assign them an A probably if they shot an A or A-. LeBron said it was one of their best performances of the postseason. I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't know if they can shoot 27% from 3 and you call that
But I think he's being like almost like a process over results GM. I think he's saying, look, the shots were good. Like, we didn't make them. Sometimes you don't make them.
Yeah. So I just think the margin I'm dancing around the statements. The margin for error for the Cavs is so narrow, and so. If they face an A Warriors performance in Game 2, even if they have an A game, they're not winning it. So that's the thing. Like, they had one they could grab, and I also thought they may have had a slight, they have a slight depth edge, and they have a slight, they had a slight rest edge because they had an extra day. So I thought Game 1 was a great opportunity for them. So, I'll be interested to see what happens with Kerr if he changes his starting lineup, because JaVale gave them a nice lift in the start the third quarter. They went away from Looney, but then when he brought Looney in, I thought Looney played well in the second half.
Yeah, if I'm Kerr, I start Looney again. I get the JaVale appeal. He only played 6 minutes, and he bonked a dunk, and Curry passed the ball through it.
Crazy.
It was unbelievable. It was great offense and disastrous, and Curry passed the ball through his legs once. And Looney was sound enough defensively, forced LeBron, I thought, into more difficult shots than you would imagine Looney could. Got a strip at one point on LeBron by helping off Clarkson, I believe, and was credited with the steal for that. I thought if I'm going to start a center, despite the JaVale mania, I'm still going to start Looney.
Did you like Jordan Clarkson's performance last night?
As I said on Howard Beck's podcast, PJ Tucker's has had a better postseason than Jordan Clarkson. And PJ Tucker's ass had a great postseason, really great postseason, particularly in Game 7. Jordan Clarkson has just been, he was +8. I don't know how that lineup with Clarkson, Braun, Korver, Green, and Nance, it was the best lineup in the game for the Cavs, and part of that is LeBron's on the floor, so you're going to get these runs, and Nance had a great game. But there's not a lot of shooting in that group. It doesn't seem like a particularly dynamic group. Clarkson misses everything, but that lineup got them back and got them a lead.
Yeah, again, that's one of the things, like the Cavs they got almost nothing out of Korver last night. And Korver's going to be challenged in these situations. There's just nobody for him to defend. But you're figuring he's going to hit 2 or 3 threes. I know he got 1 last night, but again, he hits 2, he hits 3, the Cavs win. But yeah, George Hill got into foul trouble, so they take him out of the game and they put Clarkson in, and they were able to get. The other thing I thought that was important was when LeBron sat on the bench, they actually were. I think they were plus when LeBron was out of the game.
LeBron was minus 13 in a game they lost by 10. So yes, by my very advanced math, they were plus 3.
Good job, Dartmouth.
Well, they had that sequence where Hill made a corner 3 off a defensive breakdown by the Warriors, and then Durant threw that lazy inbounds pass to Curry that they stole, and then they scored again, and it was like a 5-0 run in 20 seconds without Bron. And like it sounds dumb, but like that changes an entire game. Winning those 20 seconds 5-0 with LeBron on the bench, which is a situation in which you're generally you almost are better off just punting the shot clock every time you're so bad. That changes an entire game. Like when that happened, I bolded it in my notes. Like remember that. If the Cavs win, remember that, because that's all it takes is one fluky play like that when LeBron's on the bench and the whole game gets upended. Because the Warriors historically have won those minutes by such a landslide that it's comical.
All right. Well, here's my inverse of that. People want to criticize, and rightfully so, JR for losing the score at the end. It was just as hurtful that he makes a stupid gamble at the end of the first half and lets Curry get an uncontested shot and cost him 3 points.
There's so many things that happened in this game that I forgot about that until you just brought it up, and I forgot that Klay Thompson got hurt until they were playing footage in the green room at Get Up today. I was like, oh yeah, Klay Thompson got hurt. That was like 17 ridiculous things ago.
The Cavs were also furious about the strip, that LeBron was called for a foul on the strip. I can't remember what to play, but they were also fired up about that late in the game, a couple of calls. That's sort of what happens in games like this. There's 100 different things that happen one way or the other. They can give you an inch or whatever, and it ends up adding up.
Well, two of the little ones I'll always remember are Looney with an offensive putback of a free throw miss, which I believe Nance was trying to box him out and it didn't go well. And LeBron with a weak box out on Draymond with about 8 minutes to go. Draymond just sort of moved around him, got a rebound, kicked it to Klay Thompson, who drove a closeout and scored. It's like little stuff like that. You got no margin for error. None.
It's really daunting. And also I thought there was a phenomenal moment late in the game where Steph goes up for that layup and LeBron pins it off the glass. In almost the exact moment in space where he different play, but almost the exact moment in space where he blocked the Durant or the Iguodala shot. It was the same side of the glass that he blocked at the same end of the court that he blocked the Iguodala shot. And Steph turns to him, and I think this is sort of an indication of the mindset of the two teams. Steph turns to him. I think this is what he said. I obviously don't have a microphone recording, but I think what he said was, boy, you couldn't let me have that one. and Steph was basically like joking, because the game was over. And, that's Steph being Steph, right? He was just trying to have a little bit of fun or whatever. And LeBron basically told him to get the blank out of his face. And then they had the back and forth. But that's what that was a result of, was basically Steph trying to make a joke like, hey, we're, everything's all right. We're buddies. It's no big deal. Not we're buddies, but, just sort of a de-stress the situation because the game was over and LeBron was having none of it. And I mean, I think that's, you can get down to the mindset of the two teams. The Warriors are generally happy-go-lucky. Even when things don't go their way, they usually come out on top. And everything's another wonderful night, another happy night in Oakland. And for LeBron, working his tail off, doing everything he possibly can against this, generationally great team, and he's going to come up with a loss. And I think that in that moment, it sort of personified the nature of where this series is and the nature of those two guys. I mean, Steph's future is secure. He knows where he's going to be. He's happy. He knows he's going to get maybe a ring this year probably and more in the future. And LeBron has no idea, and he's just played one of the greatest games of his career, and he's got to take a loss.
Last thing, because I told you I'd get you out of here early. Is there a scene from post game, whether it's a conversation or something at the podium or just something in the bowels of the arena that you happen to see? Is there a scene that's going to stick with you for a long time as a memorable thing? Well,
Ty Lue was so upset. By the way, I we didn't even talk about this. He'll get fined, don't you think?
I would think. Yeah. When you say the word robbed, I think the NBA will find you.
Yeah. So think about what the NBA's got to deal with today, right? Their little checklist. All right, we gotta review the flagrant foul. We gotta possibly wonder if there should be a technical added to that. We gotta worry about Kevin Love coming onto the court or not. We got to talk about Ty Lue's fine. And they also have an important decision to make, in my opinion, as a side assignment about how they're going to, what refereeing crew they're going to assign to Game 2, because they need to have a good and clean officiated game in Game 2. And maybe they weren't planning on, because sometimes the rotation of officials, you may see the best crew work Game 3 or 4 because that sets them up to then work Game 7. They may have to discuss about that, but Ty was devastated after the game, devastated. And my guess is, I don't know. I wonder if they had a conversation. Dan Gilbert was in the locker room after the game, so I wonder if they had a conversation about whether or not they should, give Ty the clearance to go complain about the officials. That stuff goes on.
Yeah.
So I don't know this for a fact. I want to be 100% clear for the aggregators out there. I don't know this for a fact, but Dan Gilbert was in the locker room and he came stomping out shortly before Ty came and talked to the podium. And it wouldn't surprise me if they discussed whether Ty should go after the officials, and then he did. So that was a remarkable scene. Tristan Thompson also, I think, kind of got something wrong. Tristan was furious about Sean Livingston taking that shot because the game was effectively over, but there was the Warriors would have had to take a turnover for a shot clock violation. So he wasn't 100% wrong in shooting it. I think a lot of teams would have just let the clock run out and just given the Cavs the ball back and let them hold it out, but the Warriors typically would shoot there. So Tristan was he called it BS without using those words. He called it the actual word. Mm-hmm. That Livingston did that, and so that was what his thing was. His whole thing was I went out there to contest a shot because they were still shooting, and so he was really upset about that. And then when it was relayed to him that there was 2 seconds differential and blah blah blah, that didn't sit well with him. JR came right to the media. He didn't try to hide or anything. I mean, he got dressed and said, "I'll come talk to the media." And he sold the concept that he's his defense wasn't the worst defense in the world. He said, if I thought we were ahead, I just would have stood put and let them foul me.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds like a good defense, but his actions just don't show that at all. And LeBron just was stewing. And I did think it was funny. I can disassociate myself from this. I can just laugh at these moments, with LeBron, saying, "Be better tomorrow," after he was upset with Mark Schwartz's questions at the end of the game. "Be better tomorrow." I just thought it was a great thing to say to the media. I just loved that. Oh, and one other thing, Zach.
Keep going.
In the pregame, and I know that this is, it's kind of moot because we're not in a negotiating cycle, but Adam Silver, he got asked several times about having the same two teams in the finals, and he said, in fact, used the words, if you're upset with having the same two teams in the playoffs, maybe we should have a hard cap.
Yeah, he said the HC phrase. He said it.
Which is never going to happen, and we're 5 years away from the next bargaining cycle.
Yeah, it's a long time.
But it was an interesting retort to, hey, are you concerned about the league having the same teams in the playoffs? He's like, well, these are the two highest payrolls, and if you had a hard cap, that may not be the case. I thought it was an interesting retort to the concept. Well,
big picture, it will be fascinating if the Warriors can afford to keep these teams together. This team together, rather. If Clay or Draymond ends up eligible for a supermax at the right time, which my head hurts too much right now to see if that is even possible anymore. Because you're talking about a payroll with repeater taxes into the $400 million range, which is completely unprecedented in the NBA.
If Clay takes an extension this summer, I don't need to. We'll talk about it this summer.
It's a different.
If Clay takes an extension this summer and thereby leaves tens of millions of dollars on the table, which they're also happy here right now. I know that the Warriors want to change their roster out. I mean, they're not happy with the bottom half of their roster. They got to get better. Like, they know that they need to improve to stay at the top, but they have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful margin for error, maybe the greatest in history. If Clay does in fact extend this summer, thereby putting the Warriors in position to save maybe $100 million in taxes and salary, they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere for years and years, unless there's health issues.
Well, let's give LeBron a couple more days before we start having that discussion. All right, go do what else you got? What should we be on the lookout? What else? You're going to be everywhere today, I'm sure, out there in Oakland. What else should we be looking for?
Yeah, I'm doing the jump today.
All right, tell Rachel I say hello.
Yeah, it'll be a fun show today on the jump, and I did First Take, and I don't know, there'll be some other stuff out there. I at some point I'd like to spend 15 minutes, in San Francisco not doing work, but I don't see why that would ever happen. I don't foresee it for the next 2 days. Well,
tomorrow's a shot. Tomorrow feels like you should have a shot. If they just film, the secret is they just got to film stuff in San Francisco, but I guess it's not as easy as doing it in Oakland. All right, go do your thing. Wendy, thanks for making time. I know it's early there. I know you were up late last night. Everyone, it just felt like a game we had to talk about, so I appreciate it.
All right, I'll talk to you later. Take care.